Welcome back everyone, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. This is going to be part 2 of this Worktable build. In part 1 we built this tabletop that is completely flat and very sturdy, as well as these 2 cabinets underneath. And in this video we're going to make everything that will go inside of those cabinets. On one side we're going to have simple doors with a shelf in each cabinet, and on the other side we're going to make some really nice drawers. I'll also show you how to make some really nice handles for those drawers using some 3D printed router templates. But more on that later. Let's get started building. In the last episode, we already cut out all the parts for these drawers. That means that the next step now is to make all these parts fit together. So the drawers are constructed in a way that these 4 pieces make up the frame of the drawer. And then there's an additional piece that will go on the outside of this drawer frame, and this will be the visible part of the drawer. And this bottom plate will be recessed into the sides of these 2 side pieces. That's why the sides are taller than the front and back piece. The next step now will be to cut the grooves into these side pieces so that we can fit everything together. And we're going to cut that groove on the table saw. So since we've already cut these pieces to final dimensions, we can use the front and back piece, which is going to sit on top of the bottom plate, as a guide for where the groove needs to start on the side pieces. So I could just use this width and set my guide so that it will cut the top of the groove at the same height as the front and back pieces. Then we'll just need to set the height of the saw blade, and then we can make the first cut. After that, we can just keep moving over the fence little by little until we have a groove that's wide enough to fit our bottom sheet. So now that these grooves are cut, we can finally see how these drawers will look assembled. So these side pieces will slot into the bottoms like so, really giving it some extra strength. And then the front and back will be assembled like this, with the front piece on the outside like that. Now we need a way of attaching everything together, and the way I'm going to do that is to use some biscuits. The same thing that I did with the cabinets underneath the table in the first episode. I like using a biscuit joiner and joining it together with biscuits instead of screwing it together, because I like the clean look that it gives without any exposed screws on the sides. As well as these biscuits give a really strong glue joint. So we will just mark up everywhere where we need biscuits, and then we'll go ahead and biscuit joint everything together. Now that we made sure that everything fits together, even with the biscuits in place, we could essentially start gluing everything together right now. But before we do that, we need to make some handles for these drawers. And as promised, I've got a pretty cool solution for you. So I 3D modeled and printed these router templates. And together with this router guide, they will allow me to cut some really nice and simple handles for these drawers. And the way this is going to work is that I'm going to use one of these Makita routers. And the holder for this router has this black plate screwed onto it. So what I did was to 3D model and print my own plate that will bolt onto this instead of the black piece of plastic. So the way this is going to work is that out of the center of this hole, we're going to have a router bit poking out. And then around that router bit, there's a little lip. And this lip will ride on the inside of the router template right here. And I've printed 2 different ones. The front and the back side for clearance so you can put your fingers in there. I've attached a little spacer piece to my router template just to get the right height of the hole in the drawer front. So in theory, all we got to do now is just to line up the template where we want to have the hole, clamp it down, and then we should be ready to router a hole in this. And just like that, we have a really nice cutout for our handles. Now we're not quite done yet. We still need to router out the back side of these handles, and we're going to do that with a slightly bigger template. And using this bigger template to router out the back side is going to make for a bigger pocket, which is going to make it really nice and easy to grab onto with our fingers. So that was it. Both sides of the front piece are routed out and they look great. So this is how it's going to look when it is attached to the front. There's only one last thing I need to do before I can glue everything together, and that is right now I still don't quite have enough room to get my fingers comfortably in here. So we're quite simply just going to use the same router template that we used for the backside here and router out a little bit of a pocket into this piece as well. Once we've done that, we'll go ahead and glue everything together. Dusty. There we have it. That was all of the pockets cut. It does create quite a lot of dust, so make sure to use a mask if you're going to do this. I do have some little pockets here that are meant to suck out the dust as it's generated, but hogging out this material this quickly is just way too much for my little shop vac to handle. So since we now are done routing out all the pockets in all the parts for these drawers, we are basically ready to start gluing these together. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that all the templates that I 3D printed for this project will be available to download for free, and there will be a link in the description. I will not be charging any money for these, but if you do want to help me out, you can click that like button and maybe subscribe to the channel. That would make me very happy. Okay, enough talk about 3D printed router templates. Let's start gluing up some drawers. Look at that, all the drawer frames are now finally glued up. The next step will be to mount the drawer fronts to the frames. And the way we're gonna do that, line it up like that, and then make sure that we're in the middle. And as a little check, we can look inside of here and see if the groove that we cut lines up, which it does. Now we can just carefully clamp this thing together. And for now, I don't think I'll use any glue for these, I'll just screw them together. The drawers are finished. The next step will be to install the runners. And I've got two of those drawer runners right here. So these are meant to go on either side right here. They will go into a little hole on the back side that I've already drilled. And on the front side here, they go into one of these little funny clicky thingies right there. And then they click in. And this orange piece is screwed into the drawer. So now that these are attached, we can now see how these two will lock together. And they really easily lock in place like this. So now we need to mount these drawer slides to the cabinet frames underneath. And of course, I could just measure where the hole positions are in the drawer slides and attach them and then keep moving up one by one drawer. But to make my life a little bit easier, and again, since I already have modeled this up in 3D, I just grabbed the measurements for the hole positions from that 3D model, drew them up on a scrap piece of wood, and I can now use this one and just set it in here. And now I can just drill all the holes straight away, attach all the drawer slides, and then everything should be smooth sailing from there on. I hope. Alright, the moment is here. All the drawers are assembled, or the slides are mounted in the cabinets, and now to the part where I show you why I like these drawer systems so much. So installing one of these is as simple as done. And it has a really nice soft close feature. Last one. Woo! Ha! All right then. That side is finished. Let's work on this side. It certainly isn't light, but at least it's sturdy. Okay, on this side, what we got left is to mount a couple of doors and then one shelf on each side. Now I could just screw these in a fixed position in place right here, but I want a little bit of adjustability. So what I've done is that I've used the same scrap board from earlier that I used to find the locations for the drawer slides, and I marked up the location for a couple of holes, and I'll use this template to drill the holes on either side on both cabinets, and then we'll stick some of these metal shelf holder thingies in there. And with these 4 or 5 holes, that will give me enough adjustability for what I need. On to the other side. And I've got a little piece of tape on my drill bit here so I know how deep to go. And just like that, we've got a shelf with a little bit of adjustability. The next step and final step is to put on a door. So right here, I've got the 2 doors that we previously cut out, and I've got the hinge as well. Now I've marked up the position where I want these hinges, and now we just need a way of attaching this hinge to the door. So to make my life a little bit easier, I went over to the boys and installed this guy, which is a really nice overpriced hinge hole drill jig that Bloom makes, that we can just slap on there and use to make the holes. And now the hinges should fit right in the holes that we just drilled with that nice jig. We've just got one quick little detour before we put this in though, and that is that right now all the edges on these doors are really sharp, and that isn't necessarily really nice to handle. So I've got my router set up to take off just a tiny little chamfer around the corners, and we're gonna do that before we assemble this, because it would be kind of hard to get to otherwise. Now I'm going to do that to all of both of the doors, of course. But right now I just want to show you how these really nicely just go in there, and that's it. That's pretty nice, isn't it? So they have this little expanding thing that goes inside of the hole and expands when this lever is flipped down, and that holds them in place securely enough. In order for the hinges to have something to attach to, we need to install these mounting plates that the hinges snap into. And these go just on the inside here. And we're gonna use this very much not official Bloom hinge jig drill hole thingy to line up with the mark I've made here and drill those holes that we can now put 2 screws into. Okay, we're basically ready to mount the door now. The very last thing we need to do is to drill a hole for this thing. This is a push open mechanism so that I can push on the door and it will open automatically. This thing will go inside of the shelf right here, and for that we're going to use, you guessed it, this very specialized Bloom jig thingy. Last one, I promise. It fits. That's basically it. All right, that's it. The Worktable is finally finished. I've used it like this for a couple of weeks now, and I've got to say it's really nice to not only have this huge work surface, but also have all this storage space underneath. It really makes all of my most used tools so much more organized and easy to get to. I'm also super happy that I went through all the effort of making these drawer handles. Together with the Bloom drawer slides, they just feel amazing to use. I'm planning on giving the table a coat of paint and a nicer work surface in the future, but as for now, I'm super happy with the way it is. As for organizing the drawers, I've basically just thrown everything in here right now, but I've got a ton of cool ideas, and I want to have every single drawer organized to the point where every single tool has its specific spot. But that will have to be the content for a future video. As for now, I can give you this quick little teaser. I've already started on the top drawer here to organize all of my screws and most used things. These are all 3D printed and fit perfectly inside of the drawer. So that will be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing. And I see you guys in the next video. Bye!